Now, I just finished watching the first two episodes of Alien Earth, and I was like, come on, like, if you're going to go stupid, can you go all in stupid? Because at the end of the day, when a film or a show knows it's kind of dumb and then leans into it, goes down that path, it can be pretty entertaining. It can be quite fun. I hope Alien Earth just goes down that road instead of the super serious way. So I thought, you know what? Let me talk about a sci fi film that knew it was stupid but just put all the chips down and said, let's go. Freejack. Now, Freejack had all the pieces, all the hallmarks of being a sci fi classic, but it ended up being a train wreck. I would say an enjoyable train wreck. I actually had fun with this film. It's got a pretty basic premise, it deals with people wanting to download their consciousness into another person's body. Interesting in a way. And look, I review films and shows that I personally think have been forgotten, leftovers. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to be bangers or top tier films. And Free Jack, this ain't that, not even close. But sometimes, you run into a film that's so bad that it's kind of good in that way. It's kind of entertaining and fun. And that's what we have here. It's an early 90s film, 1992. To be honest, if this had come out in the 80s, I think it would have been way, way better. Like, it would have been better received. Not saying it would have been a better movie, but like, it would have been better received. But we got it in the 90s. Biggest draw card for me is the cast: Emilio Estevez, Rene Russo, Anthony Hopkins, and Mick Jagger. Yeah, let that sink in. Mick Jagger. And, he's not really acting in this. He has a character, but he's basically playing himself. And it's ridiculous, but at the same time, it's pretty awesome. So let's jump into what this film is actually about. So it's 1991. Race car driver Alex, played by Emilio Estevez, the main man. He is about to perish in a fiery crash. But just as he's about to meet his maker, he mysteriously gets snatched away from his timeline. Like, his body is just taken. Now, if now in the crowd, the people watching the race, they don't see the body disappear or anything. They just see the fiery crash. But Alex, he wakes up, 18 years later in the future, 2009. It's a gritty world now, neon drenched, dystopian. It's a world where the corporations run everything, and the rich, they figured out a way how to, I guess, live forever. How? How, you might ask? Well, free jacking, basically stealing someone's body from the past and then downloading their consciousness into it. And so Alex, in this case, is the unsuspecting victim. He's like a commodity, on the run. Now, Freejack, in a way that's a high concept idea. The world building is interesting enough. It's a little dated, but it's interesting. Interesting. Now, the fashion is like a mix of, leather, chains, a bit of everything, cyberpunk in a way. It's charming, it's clunky. You're either some poverty stricken zombie like person or you're an elite, the rich poor divide. You kind of get it. But where the film really shines and kind of got me laughing is the cast and the way they deliver their lines, the way they act. So let's start with Emilio Estevez. He's in his peak 90s hero phase. He was pretty popular in the 90s, and he's just playing the everyman in this film as he usually does. He runs, he jumps. He actually makes a lot of confused faces, but he's exactly what the role needs him to be. Yeah, but honestly, sometimes he's literally just staring at nothing, like blankly looking at nothing. It sometimes feels like someone behind the camera is like holding up, a board with his lines on it, and Estevez looks at it and he's like, "No, I don't think I'm going to say that." And so it's just like this empty scene. Now we've got Rene Russo, who plays his former fiancee, the love interest. She's become a corporate executive since, you know, she last, well, I guess, ill-fatedly saw Alex perish. It's supposed to be the emotional core of the film, their reunion, their love story, or whatever it is, but it's really not fleshed out in any way that's important. She's your basic smart girl, boss babe, helpful in certain scenarios, but to be honest, they don't really get her to do much in this film. There is one pretty funny moment with her towards the end. I'll come back to that a little bit later. And look, carrying on with the cast, we've got Anthony Hopkins, and he's your corporate bigwig. He's the tycoon, McCandless. He's the puppet master, the bad guy, and he kind of, I guess, delivers his line with some menace, but it's more theatrical. That's really it. It's more flair than anything else. There's actually a moment near the start of the film where it's almost like a Star Wars Emperor scene where his character is calling via a holographic image or video, and he's cloaked and he's wearing a hood, and he's got like a voice modulator, and he's saying, go get me Alex's body. And it was like it was pretty funny, and I can kind of see if that Anthony Hopkins, he's having fun with this film. At least I hope he is. Yeah, but rounding off the cast, sorry, Mick Jagger. Now, Mick Jagger's playing the bounty hunter Vicendic, and he's basically a caricature. He's the classic cyberpunk bounty hunter. He's got a big old leather trench coat, and every line is kind of like Stallone or a Schwarzenegger kind of line. It's over the top. And honestly, he's the best part of the film, and I wanted him to be on the screen the most out of everyone. His lines are terrible, but perfect at the same time. But let's jump into I guess the not so good, and I don't want to like really hit this film too hard, but honestly, man, there are a lot of plot holes, like Swiss cheese level plot holes, and nonsensical plot holes at times. Yeah, I mean, there's a scene where Alex, he meets an old friend from the past who just seems to still be in the area where he's meant to be, and honestly, it all of a sudden becomes non-friendly, but it doesn't matter because the script just like removes him anyway. Also, the script for some reason it lets you believe that Alex and Vicendic have some long-standing rivalry, but they don't. I mean, they literally just met not not only a few days ago, so it's weird. And then, of course, the freejacking process itself is just all over the place. Special effects, some are pretty good for the time, but too much is trash. There's too many trash, special effects scenes. There's a lot of green screen as well, and it's green screen. Yeah, and oh man, there was one scene where Vicendic's men, his henchmen, they're driving around in what I think is dune buggies, and I'm like, for what purpose? You're in a metropolitan city. You don't need to be driving around in dune buggies. Anyway, as I say, I don't want to like dig into this film too much. Don't want to hurt it. As I mentioned earlier, there was a funny scene with Rene Russo's character, and honestly, it actually got a big chuckle from me because there's a moment towards the end where Alex and McCandless, the villain, Anthony Hopkins' character, they're confronting each other. Like there's kind of a final scene, and McCandless, he explains like why he specifically needs Alex's body, like why it has to be Alex, because rich people, they can actually get another body if need be to download their consciousness into. But McCandless is obsessed with getting Alex's body. So he explains, I'm only wanting Alex's body because I'm in love with you, Julie. And I'm like, okay. Now, he's telling this to Julie while she's in the room with Alex. And for me, a normal person, a normal chick would turn around to McCandless and be like, "Hey, look, even if you took Alex's body, you wouldn't be my Alex, the Alex that I love. You'd still be McCandless." However, Rene Russo's character, Julie, she just stands there, almost like looking at Alex and McCandless and saying, "All right, McCandless is pretty rich. Let's just see how this goes. You guys fight it out, and I'll just go with whichever wins." And I'm like, "Holy cow! Is this like a typical modern woman? Money over love?" Nah, just kidding. But it got a huge chuckle out of me. I was like, "Yo, that's actually pretty funny." Because yeah, the script literally gets like nobody to do nothing at times. And look, I'll say that's the beauty of the film. It's the unintentional laughs. It's not a great film by any stretch, but it's one of these films that you can have fun with, especially if you turn your brain off. You just switch it off. Freejack, it's not going to be any Blade Runner imitation or anything like that. It's a B movie. It's got some A-list, characters in there, actors in there. Sorry, watch it, on a Friday night with some pizza, some beers, your friends, and I tell you what, you might actually have a good time. And look, if I have to give it a rating, it's a 4 out of 10, yeah. But it's an entertaining 4 out of 10. It's a stupid 4 out of 10, if I may. Anyway, look, that's me. If you haven't seen Free Jack, give it a go. If you haven't seen it in a while, well, maybe have another look. See, if anything, just rewatch it for Mick Jagger, just being Mick Jaggery. All right, that's me for today. You guys have a good one. Leftover Monkey out.